getting that set up a little bit, I guess I really appreciate you guys having us here, man. We're getting questions like you wouldn't believe. Not everybody, but a lot of you have heard of Indigo, and there's a lot of questions, everything from what's this carbon program all about, and what are you going to charge us for this, or how does this all work? And the other thing is, well, how do you guys make any money? Well, I don't know yet. Now, I'm excited to work for them. I've known this company for the last couple of years. I worked for a seed dealer. I'm from Kansas, and I worked for a large wheat seed dealer in Kansas. And so 2 years ago, when Indigo came to Kansas when they were launching their microbial products for wheat seed, they came and started working with us. And at that time, they were just a brand new startup, and I told them that when they're ready to focus on soil health, cover crops, and that kind of stuff, I'm not going to go to work for them. Well, a year and a half later, that actually happened. So my title is actually Regen Specialist for the High Plains. So it's all about the 5 principles. My job is the greatest job in the world. I get to work with the Indigo agronomists and with growers like you guys to help improve soil health, regenerative ag, and what we can do to further that along. I don't sell anything. I just get to go and work with you guys. Been fortunate enough to ask to present at a couple of places, and so I'm really excited about it. I don't know if they finding connections or technical difficulties. So a little bit about this presentation that we're getting ready to do. So Sarah's the brains when it comes to carbon. I don't know what Sarah knows when it comes to carbon, but what I do know is that the way to sequester carbon is to follow the 5 principles of regenerative ag. And I'm talking to the choir here about this, but if we follow those 5 principles, that's exactly what we're doing, is helping sequester more carbon by minimal disturbance. That's both physical and chemical. We know we can't get away from both of them yet, but we're working on it. I was so impressed to hear Mark talk about being able to cut back on some synthetic fertilizers, being able to cut back and help make the farm more profitable. That's doing the right thing, and that's helping to sequester carbon with that. So I had a grower in Kansas ask me the other day, she said, now, tell me if I'm getting this straight, but you're going to pay me to do what I should be doing anyway? I said, well, yeah, that's it with the carbon program. So it's exciting to talk to you guys about this and work with you guys on it. Those 5 principles are minimal disturbance, increased diversity, keep a living root in the ground, armor on top of the soil, and then insert livestock. All 5 of those, we may not in my own operation. I'm not at the pinnacle of that yet, but I also appreciate to hear today that we all can make improvements, and that's what we're doing, is trying to learn from each other, and that's really, really important. How are we doing, Sarah?
We're doing well. That is safe.
Cool.
So I'm really excited to be here today. Thank you. Thank you so much for having us. Darren and I joke that we love doing presentations together and kind of go back and forth. I've worked at Indigo for the last 18 months. I'm kind of considered a grandma there because I was employee number 300, and now there's about 14 to 1,500 employees. It's a very quickly growing company. So I grew up in Terre Haute, Indiana. Both of my grandparents were farmers in Southern Illinois, and I always knew I wanted to go into ag. I took kind of a while to get there, but so like I said, I'm really excited to be here, and we will talk about carbon as soon as this presentation is up and ready.
2 ice cream cones are better than one.
That's a good one.
You know, I'd get up there and help them, but it darn sure didn't hire me for my technical capabilities. I have no idea.
Anybody has IT.
Well, they're trying to figure that out a little bit. Maybe I can tell you a little bit about Kansas. I told you that I'm from Kansas. I'm from the big town of Pretty Prairie, Kansas. I'm sure you've all heard of it. We're a town of about 800 people in the south central part of the city. You know where Wichita is. I'm northwest of Wichita, about 40 miles or so. And I find wherever we go, we all have a lot of the similar problems, even though that they're different. You guys, having a spring cover crop, you're trying to get rid of your moisture. We have just the absolute opposite effect in Kansas. We don't have enough moisture there, and it's all about saving it. But we can use cover crops, I'll particularly talk about cereal rye, as that catalyst to do both. In the spring, when you leave it, plant green to get rid of it, we terminate it just before we plant so that we can capture all the moisture, keep the ground covered, keep the soil cool, and anytime it does rain, we want it to stay right there and infiltrate to be able to use it later. But like I say, it's all about the 5 principles. And so if you just think about the 5 principles, and we'll talk about that later maybe, that's what we do. I've been very fortunate. We have a really good group in Kansas, and there's actually a couple of different groups. I don't know if any of you heard of No-Till on the Plains. They're in Wichita. Maybe some of you. How many of you ever been to No-Till on the Plains? Oh wow, cool. That's really good. Yeah, what an awesome organization, awesome programs that they've got there. There's another conference a week before No-Till on the Plains called Soil Health U, put on by a magazine out there, the High Plains Journal. They expect around 700 people there this year for that. They've got a lot of pre-registers, and they're going to have a lot of really, really good speakers. So it's all about learning from each other. And one thing that I've really been impressed with in this whole regenerative ag community is the fact that everybody's willing to share. Everybody's willing to learn and help each other, because we know that this is the best for the soil, the best for the environment, and the best way to farm. And I've been really, really impressed with that in our community.
I know livestock here on beef. What's that like?
Yeah, so so that's a big thing. One thing, last night I was fortunate enough to eat dinner with some of the board members here. And that's a big thing for us in Kansas is, and how I really got started into it. So my brother and I, we don't have a big operation. We don't have the time. But we manage around 770 acres. It's primarily a cow-calf operation. Back in Kansas, when we're planting the cover crop, it is almost always paid for with livestock. Livestock integration is a big, big thing back there. And I think it's something that you guys, if I could make a suggestion, may want to explore a little bit further, because I know that there's not as many cattle integrated into what you guys are doing here. And so it's just something to think about. Like I say, we pay for our cover crops more than pay for it. It's actually a profit center. We can graze them all winter and then turn around, pull them off, and let it grow to have the benefit of the cover crop later on in the summer. Did you guys get this going?
We did. There's nothing like that awkward technical moment, right? So thank you for bearing with us during that. We did. We got it going.
They're thanking you for getting it going, so I don't have to sit here and rattle on.
Thank you. All right, should we actually get started then, Darren? Okay. Yes, it is.
This is on, right? Yeah.
Okay, can everybody, okay?
Close.
Oh. Okay, outside of my comfort zone. Well, okay. So I did a kind of poor job of introducing myself earlier because I was very flustered. I am the head of agronomy strategy, so I work on the agronomy team and have been working for the last year to really get Indigo Carbon set up and launched, and I'm really excited to be here to talk to you about it today. So how many of you have heard of Indigo other than today? So about 50-50, it looks like. Well, I'm really excited even more than to talk to you about Indigo. So Indigo started about 6 years ago, and we started with the development of a microbial seed treatment. And since then, we've really expanded beyond that. Right now, we are operating across 5 countries. We are in, I think, 26 states, something like that. Just this last year, we were awarded the CNBC Disruptor of 2019, along with Uber and SpaceX, just for you to see all of those other companies that are on there with us. And we are the fastest growing ag company. So like I said, I was employee number 300. I started 18 months ago, and now there's, I think, over 1,400 employees in Indigo. So very rapid growth. Just within the last, I want to say, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, on the agronomy team alone, we hired 80 people. So like an explosion of growth. And most of those people are people to go out and soil sample for the Indigo Carbon program. So we're rapidly expanding that. We are founded on 3 principles, and it's the reason that I work for the company, and I think Darren works for the company, and everybody else at Indigo works for the company.
She thinks I work for the company.
That's true.
I've got her fooled.
But one of them is to increase grower profitability, right? We all think that's important. Another one is for environmental sustainability, which is what Indigo Carbon is about, and the profitability part, and then the third is consumer health. So we think regenerative farming, and Darren can talk more to this, but really incorporates all 3 of those principles. So we're really diving in head first into this, and Darren and I think there's 6 other regenerative specialists that we've hired within the last 6 months to provide expertise on that.
Yeah, and our latest one will be covering Ohio. Leron, you want to stand up? Leron, he's your guy from Indigo. He's the regenerative ag specialist. Actually lives across the line to the west, but we won't hold that against him. But he'll be working with the agronomists and the growers here in the Ohio area for you, just for them.
So it has a lot of expertise in cover crops, no-till, integrating livestock and those kinds of things to help provide those kind of recommendations to farmers like you. So this industry, right? Probably in your opinion as well. It has 40% of global workforce, so a lot of people in the ag industry, and covers half of the habitable land on Earth. And thank you, Darren. My computer was about to fall off. That would be the ultimate of technical difficulties, wouldn't it? And yet, through that, like, despite all of that, right, crop prices have remained the same, input prices have gone up, and profitability has gone down because of the crop prices and the input prices, right? So it's really been hard on farmers and on the ag industry. It's also provided like unintended consequences, like land degradation, water usage, and those kinds of things. And you've all heard this as well. But we think that there is a solution to all of these things. And again, that's why Indigo is diving headfirst into this. And we think that's the adoption of different regenerative practices. So if I can get this video to work with my technical difficulties, it may not, but this kind of demonstrates. Okay, well, I won't do it without the sound because you can see the lovely farm ground though. Yeah, that would be really scary. That's all right. And that's our CEO, David Perry. It's okay, we'll go back to the presentation. If anybody wants to see this, though, it's on YouTube and it's quite interesting. So we'll skip that for now. There's been so many technical difficulties in this, I apologize. But what we want to do, what Indigo wants to do through this is we want to partner with all of you farmers out there to remove 1 trillion tons of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. So we're calling this teraton, right? So if you ever see like anything Indigo that says teraton, that's what this is trying to draw down 1 trillion tons of carbon. It sounds like an enormous amount of carbon. It is, but we think it's possible through regenerative practices. And to do this, we are going to pay farmers like you to remove that carbon from the atmosphere and put it in the soil. And so that's where it gets to those first two pillars, right? The profitability part and the sustainability part. So 1, earn additional income from storing carbon in your soil. 2, improve the health of your soil. And Darren will get into like how that would work. And then increase the value of the farm for your next generation. So I've heard a lot of questions about, well, do your kids want to adopt these kinds of practices, or what does this look like for the future of your land? This is something we hear as well, and we want to we want you to realize that we're thinking about it. So how does this work? The first thing that you need to do is enroll in Indigo Carbon. So there are some account managers here that can help you do that. So that would be to sign a contract with Indigo, and they can help you get signed up. We have copies of the contract here. And then we would come out and collect some baseline data for you. So data like what type of crop was on that land before? Did you no-till? Did you apply any fertilizer? Did you plant a cover crop? Those types of things. And on 6% of acres, we'll also do soil tests. And this is to measure the actual soil carbon in the soil today, so that then we can take all of that information and model to see how much carbon you actually have in your soil. And so we would pay you for that amount of carbon that's in your soil.
How much of carbon they sequester that year?
Yes, that's right. Thank you, Derek.
Additional carbon that you add through the year by doing whatever practices you were doing the previous year, that's what you'll get.
Yeah, does that make sense? I probably didn't say that very well, but yeah, so we would come out, collect the baseline data, and then the next year we would collect another set of data, and we would model how much carbon you sequestered in your soil for the past year. And then we would calculate how much carbon that is, and we would pay you for that carbon. So we would also have to verify and validate those credits so that then we can sell those credits to, say, a company who wants to show that they are carbon neutral or that they're interested in environmental sustainability and can market that to their customers. So we're actively looking for companies who are interested in doing that and have a lot of companies interested in buying credits for this program.
You almost can't turn on a news, any kind of news article or TV or anything and not hear about climate change. You know, I don't care if you believe in it or not. I don't care if you believe it's man-made or not. The consumer does. The consumers, anytime you go to and hear anything on the East Coast or West Coast, they're talking about it. They have, that demand is coming back now to the farm. That's where this is being derived from.
So if people have questions now, you can shout them out. Otherwise, we can have questions at the end too.
Well, we talk about east and west, but you gotta think north too, because they're growing corn in Canada, but they never grew corn.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
How much are you looking to pay? Any estimates at all?
Yeah, we'll get to that, yeah.
That's a great segue for the next slide.
Perfect.
So if you sign up before December 31st of this year, we will guarantee a $15 per acre rate.
Per ton.
Oh, that's right, sorry, per ton. Yes. So if you sequester 2 tons of carbon in your soil, then that would be $15 per ton per acre. Does that make sense?
So see, we don't know. That's the short answer. So past history would say, I'm going to estimate with the regenerative practices that's being talked about here is somewhere between 1 and 2 tons of carbon would be my best guess per year, per acre. Now, that's also, let's clarify, that's per metric ton of carbon because this is an international market that we're dealing with too. So both, like Sarah was saying a little bit ago, it's going to be modeled, so off of what your practices are, verified by a certain percentage of the acres actually being tested to verify that.
That's right. So I mentioned we hired 50 people just this last 2 months. They're all soil samplers, so they're going to go out and soil sample acres who have been put in Indigo carbon.
Is it somewhat though penalizing the farmers that have been doing things right and no-tilling and all that in the years past? Because somebody that's been tilling the ground forever and then they jump into this bill, aren't they gonna sequester more carbon quicker?
So in my opinion, and the model has to be verified yet, I don't think so. And I'll tell you why, because I think your soils are already to the point to be able to take in more carbon than somebody that's tilling. Somebody who's full tillage right now, their soils ain't gonna change overnight. I mean, we were hearing, Mark talked about it this morning. How many years did it take? The best time to start this was 20 years ago. The next best time to start is tomorrow. So my point is, you guys' soils, I believe you've already got a leg up. And here again, this is my opinion, because your soils are healthier than the soils that are, that it's more microbial active. I think you're going to be able to sequester more carbon faster because your soils are already primed. Wherever you're at in your journey with soil health, I believe that no, you're not going to get penalized for what you've done so far. That's my best guess.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you're going to sell these credits to other companies. Are industry being mandated to sequester carbon, and if so, who's mandating? Is it the government?
So the question is, who's buying these and why are they paying for it? And are they being mandated? No, they're not being mandated right now, but they still want to buy them.
Yeah, there's still companies who are really interested in showing that they're like carbon positive because the consumer wants to see that. So the consumer will pay more for products that show they're carbon positive or carbon neutral. So that's where the interest for buying these carbon credits is coming from.
So if these companies are interested, why do they need to go through a middleman? Why aren't they out there doing the same thing?
Great.
Yeah, it's a great question. So like I said, I've been working on Indigo Carbon for the last year. It takes a lot of work to get a program like this set up. We've had a large team of people get everything set up so that we can then go out, collect the data, verify the data that that's what the farmer is actually doing, that this is how much carbon is being sequestered in the soil. And we have the bandwidth to do that. Indigo is invested in this. There's not a lot of companies that are willing to make that investment, willing to do all of that research, work with these carbon verifiers and say that yes, like this truly is like sequestered in the soil. It's yeah, we put a lot of investment into this. Yeah.
Are you developing your own model to measure the amount of carbon sequestered, or are you using Comet Farm, off-the-shelf type stuff?
We're working with a company out of New Hampshire, and it's called the DNDC model. What? Oh, the question was, are we working with like an off-the-shelf model like Comet Farm to model how much carbon sequestered? Or are we developing that ourselves? And so we're working with that company. Yes.
So how do you account for variability in the field in your model? You said
Yeah,
like,
so how do you account for variability in the field in the model?
yes, right. So if you're sampling 6% of the field, let's say, so 6 acres and 100 acres.
Yeah.
And so one farm would differ from the other based on, the soil type there and the variability in there. So how do you account for that variability in your model?
Yeah, so the model I think right now is like 94% accurate. We've developed this program called the Sentinel Acre Program where we're doing even deeper analysis and more soil samples to be able to feed that model and make it as accurate as possible. So is it going to be 100% accurate today? No, but that's what we're hoping to get. That includes things like soil type and climate and slope and all of those different things.
So I think that brings up a really good point. This program's not perfect. This program, any of us could shoot a lot of holes in it. It's not perfect. The goal of Indigo is to bring the buyer and the seller together on this. We could do things way different if it was just for us, right here. Just for us growers who are out here on the land. But you also got to remember that you got to tie it back to the market. You got to have somebody to pay us for this. So what's important to them is not going to be important to us, and vice versa. So we have to find that common ground. We have to find a way that they're comfortable with the validation of it, the people that are buying this, as well as not make it overburden us as growers, because we know we're doing the right thing. Does that make sense?
And we've looked at different types of programs, and a lot of them are requiring so many data points from farmers just to be able to say yeah, this is truly valid. We really wanted to simplify it for you, the farmers, so that you could get paid for this. We could make it as simple for you and it still have a lot of value in that carbon credit.
There seems to be a lot of questions. Should we run through some more of these slides yet?
Okay,
because
let's do that
these
really
are really,
quickly.
let's go through them quick.
So this shows just kind of a payout schedule. If you have 1 acre and you're generating 2 carbon credits per acre for the next 10 years, then this is kind of an estimate of what that payment schedule would look like. So we have a vesting schedule or payout schedule of 10% every year. So if you say sequester those 2 tons, right? The first year you would get $240 per per year, and then the next year you would get 480 as this continues to accumulate. And you can see throughout by year 10, it would be $24 per acre that you would get, and you would continue to get paid that out, and then this would be the total cumulative benefit or payout. And that's over 500 acres, so $120,000 for that 500 acres over 20 years.
So the reason that we have to spread it out over 10 years, because we were getting a lot of questions is, well, I sequestered it, you need to pay me for it. Here again, we've got to tie the other end to this. So they're saying, how do I know if I'm going to pay these farmers in Ohio to sequester this carbon, that they're not going to go out 2 years later and moldboard plow the field? This is the way of verifying it, that no, we will keep it sequestered over the long haul. That's why we have to split it up over 10 years and make it a 10-year payout. You can look at it as like money in the bank for you guys, because we have to put that money secured to where you're going to get paid for it, as long as you don't go out and moldboard plow it. If you would go out and work the ground and get rid of that carbon again back into the atmosphere, then you're going to forfeit some of those further payments down the road. Correct?
Yes, exactly. So if you go out and plow it, then the payments would stop because you've done stopped all the carbon sequestration.
No, we won't come back and say, hey, you plowed your field, give me the money back. No. Yeah, well, boy, I don't want to even go down that road there. Good point, but no, that won't happen. So, like I was saying a little bit earlier during the technical difficulty phase of our presentation here, that we know that we're going to sequester carbon by doing just 5 things. In every one of our management decisions, if we can do these 5 things, we will be able to maximize the amount of carbon sequestered. So I'm probably preaching to the choir here because you guys are so far ahead of mainstream, or not mainstream agriculture, the majority of the producers out there. Keep the soil covered, minimize soil disturbance. I don't like to keep a root in the ground. I like to keep a live root in the ground. Through photosynthesis, we're sequestering carbon with that live root. Increase diversity, and that's diversity of everything. Plant diversity, crop rotation, livestock adds diversity, insect diversity. We want to increase diversity. If you look at Mother Nature, nothing grows in a monoculture. You go out into any native grass situation or any woodlands and just look at all the diversity that's out there. Then the last one's integrate livestock.
That's my favorite one.
Yeah. And that's a struggle and that's a challenge. That's probably a last step for a lot of guys. But it is important. Our soils were built with large ruminants, and it's an important component to the soil. You want to talk on this?
We can't. How much time do we have left? I want to make sure we have enough time for questions also. 15 minutes? Yeah. That's all right. You're good.
Does anybody recognize this photo? It was, was it taken on your land? Yeah, that's really neat. I tell you what, this illustrates what this is all about from a regenerative ag standpoint. I don't even know if it needs a lot of explanation. All I'll say is that one of the fields is being done right, and the other one is a lot of troubles. I really appreciate this. I like to use this as an example of it can be done. So we did a big study at Indigo. We called it our Cardinal operation. What we did was we went out and interviewed not quite 100 growers all across the country to find out how profitable they really are what were you doing regenerative wise and how profitable really were you. And like the slide shows, average operating profit of $271 per acre. That's over the last 5 years. It was just a study to help us understand that, yes, this regenerative agriculture really is the way to go on it. The difference between conventional growers and regenerative growers is $70 an acre. Here again, probably preaching to the choir. You guys know this. You know it's a lot more profitable to be doing this. And so that study just went to show it.
Yeah, was anybody in here part of that study? I know that we did interview several Ohio growers back there. Awesome. So, just the next steps. Like I said, we have account managers here that if you're interested in signing up for Indigo Carbon, they can help you do that. We can answer more questions after this, but it doesn't cost anything to sign up. So, like, the benefit is that you get to do what you're doing, and you get to sign up, right? There's no commitment, and there's flexibility to adopt the practices that fit your business, and we would work with you on that. Darren, we have, like I said, 7 other regenerative specialists that are on staff to really help farmers adopt those practices that are best for their operation. So let us know if you have any other questions. I have one other plug. So I am also in charge of what we're calling the Carbon Cup. So it's a competition to see who has the most carbon in their soil. We are signing up people through Sunday. So if you are a grower who is utilizing regenerative practices, we would love for you to sign up. You would select one field, a minimum of 15 acres. Sign up, we would come out and soil sample your field in the next 2 weeks, and we would announce a winner on February 1st. So if you are interested, let me know after this. So any questions?
There are farmers here in the room today that have verified carbon credits and had them enrolled on a registry at the Chicago Climate Exchange 7 to 10 years ago. Is there any way for those individuals who may still hold a credit to enroll those credits in your program today?
That's a great question, one that I will have to go back and find out about unless somebody else at Indigo knows the answer. We'll take that one back. I don't know.
You mentioned about 2 tons of credit per acre, or 2 tons of carbon per acre, or 1 ton. Could you go through the math on how that's calculated to get the ton? My organic matter has increased over the years. I can document that, but if you're using the regular standardized test, I can only move it maybe 0.1% a year.
If
How
you're,
do you come up with 2 tons? What's
Yeah.
the math?
okay, so we don't have a slide that's going to address that math, but yes, what is it? 25% of organic matter is actual carbon, right? And so, if I remember right, please correct me. Is what?
What is it?
It's
58%.
58%.
58%, 58%.
58% of organic matter.
Yeah, there's a formula. We don't have it here, but there's a formula for what that relates to. Honestly, it's a lot. If you're sequestering 1/10, you're at least doing 1 ton of carbon out of the atmosphere. Then probably more like 2 to 3.
So what's the sampling depth you follow? Because some carbon sequestration can go throughout the profile of the soil.
Right.
The deeper
Yes.
ones are much more long-lasting than the one that's surface. So
Yeah, we're doing 30 centimeters sampling depth, and we're also doing bulk density tests. We're doing a dry combustion soil sample for this.
Are you saying shallow or upper 3 inches?
We're not, no. Yes.
Does these credits stay in the United States? You say you're a worldwide company, so did China or somebody's got a bad climate? Are they buying them from you for the good job we're doing?
As far as I know, anybody can buy these credits. As we want to bring all of that money to farmers like you, right? So we're looking for any.
Well, we don't like to support companies that are doing a lousy job when we're trying to do a better job.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree with that. This whole carbon in the atmosphere, though, is not limited to the United States. This is all over the world. And so there's a lot of international companies that are doing this. And another thing about the $15 per metric ton of carbon, next year, I believe, it'll go on the open market. And so we're guaranteeing the $15 this year. Next year, when it does go on the open market, we don't know where it's going to go. It could be $10 per ton. It could be $120 per ton of carbon. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. If we do get a lot of these large companies and they know how important it is to verify carbon neutrality, then I expect it to go up. I don't expect it to go down.
Yeah, and what we're finding as we talk to these companies is they're very interested in this story of supporting farmers who are utilizing regenerative practices, right? Like, a lot of the value in this is because it is through you, like, actually adopting these practices, and that's what they're paying for.
Yes, sir.
Who owns the data when you do soil samples on a farmer's farm? Is it theirs only, or does it go into the system, and who controls that?
Yeah, so we have to provide that data to the verifier so that they can say, yes, this is a very strong carbon credit, and then we can tell the companies that are buying these credits or the individuals that this truly is a high value carbon credit. So that's what that data would be using for. It doesn't ever go to the companies that would be buying it, but it's just used to verify that data. So that would be within Indigo to verify that.
Yes, sir.
So this is going to sound like a really stupid question.
No,
I want to make sure I understand exactly what you're doing. So you're going to come out to me and you're going to interview me and you're going to take the answers to those questions, whether I use cover crops, what my crop rotation is, whatever, and you're going to plug it into this formula, and that's going to give us a number that we're working on making happen. Did I get that part right?
Yep.
Okay, so I get this number, and my number happens to be 3. So I'm putting 3 tons in there. So I'm getting $45 an acre. But really, I'm going to get $4.50 each of the next 10 years.
Yes.
I'm not going to get $4.50 the first year and $9 the second. I'm going to get $4.50 each year for 10 years.
So you will be getting that $4.50 for the next 10 years, plus whatever you sequester next year added on top of that, right? So if you sequester another, say, 3 tons, 2 tons, you get paid that 10% for that next year.
For the next 10 years.
For the next 10 years, yes. That's why in that one slide.
So once you're in at 10 years and you continue on, that's when it really adds up.
Yeah.
So you're
Does that make
rewarding me
sense?
for improving my practices, and for lack of a better term, you're punishing me for if I go backwards.
Yes. Yes. If you go backwards, because think about it from the
No, I understand.
Microsoft.
I'm just trying to get a picture, because the one slide made it look like at the end of 3 years, you were going to hand me $120,000 a year, and I don't really think that's what you meant.
No,
It's
no.
over, so it's
You're
one
right.
slide, right? It's over the lifetime, right? So if you start and keep sequestering that same amount over the next 10 years, then it would be over that 20 years, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Good question.
Yes, so you,
What was the question?
no, it's my understanding that, okay, so you're not gonna sequester as much carbon. If you went in there to have to fix the ruts, you had to go in there and you had to do something, you're not gonna get very much for that year. It's not that you're kicked out of the program or anything, and that's another reason that it's spread out over the 10 years. It might take you an extra year to get caught back up again to get it rolling, but it's not like that's going to go away unless you drop out of the program. if those bad years like that, like I say, that's why it's spread out over that 10-year period. So that, you know, for that, because listen, you got to make a living, you got to do what's right. I get it, and they understand that too. But that's that compromise. That's bringing the two together that we were talking about earlier. Did that answer your question? Yeah. Okay.
Can that be transferred to another grower? If someone buys your farm or something like that, can that same system be transferred? So let's say year 6, you sold your farm. Could you transfer that to that person? Would that be value to that person buying that the ground to keep that going? Or?
That's a great question. I know that we have an answer on that. I just don't remember what it is. It's with the person who signs the contract. Yes. Okay, so did you hear that? If the name of the entity changes, it does not transfer. No, so what we do is we map the spot, like geospatially map it, so that we know exactly where we sampled and we can go back the next year, or in 5 years, whenever we do that next one.
Yes, sir. Clear back on the.
If I understood you right, you're going to inspect 6% of the acres to verify it, and the rest is going to be just put into a program. Does that program take in compensation? For example, if I plant a blend of a cover crop at 25 pounds the acre, and my neighbor does the same blend at 12 pounds the acre, I'm going to sequester more carbon than he is. How does that, or if I plant my corn at 34,000, he does his at 26,000, I got more plants, more carbon sequestering. Is there any, how does the guy that's doing maximizing it get rewarded over the guy that maybe isn't doing so much?
Yeah, it's actually looking at the amount of biomass and estimating the amount of biomass, and it does ask like things like seeding rate and the number of species and those types of things.
Explain how that livestock portion enters into it. Is it just, you get a neighbor, put on that, covers that deal?
Yeah, we can ask. So we ask questions about things like fertilizer and manure application. We also, if you have livestock and you rotate them on there, we ask you like how many days that you may have had livestock on that field, so that we understand that component of it, and the model would then generate the carbon level based on that.
So the model not only uses the carbon data, but also the management data that the farmers will be providing?
Yeah, so that's why we ask those management level questions to better understand that. There's some questions.
So if a farmer gives you a certain amount of information, and then the weather changes like this year and everything is variable in farming, so do you go back and then micromanage that farmer's, then how do you verify that, as this guy's question was on the cover crop seeding, he says he uses this but doesn't, then how do you verify that? I mean, are you in there poking at him saying, well, you said you were doing this, so you need to be doing this?
So the question is, like, how do we verify that the farmer actually did what they said they were going to do, right? Essentially.
Well, and how many, I mean, is that a yearly thing, or is that a 6-month thing, or do you have somebody?
No, so what we do is we have a set number of questions that we need to get answers to. And so you would provide us the information for those questions, and then we would put that into the model. And we would have, there's going to be an external auditor who needs to check a specific percentage of growers and just spot check them, right? There's also, we have Indigo Atlas that can also use to verify.
Satellite data.
Yeah, it's geospatial data.
Yeah, and so, but please don't misunderstand. We're not gonna to micromanage anything. Everybody gets to make their own choices on what you want to do. We're not telling you how to farm at all. Please believe me. I mean, that's, you know, you guys know way better than us on what's best for your farm. We will help any way we can. We will give advice that we think would be the best way to sequester more carbon, but it's got to fit into your own operation, because if it doesn't work for any of us. So please, we're not here to tell you how to farm or what to do or micromanage anything at all. We don't want to. We want to help you be more profitable, but it's your choice. Every farmer gets to make their own decision.
Yeah, and like I said at the beginning, we wanted to make this program as simple as possible for farmers.
What's nice that no cost to sign up, but are there any costs?
Nope. No, we pay for all the soil sampling, we pay for everything on there, and so, yeah, no, there's absolutely zero cost to sign up. Now, if you want to go deeper into it and get some agronomic advice and some all of that, there's different programs you can do, but for just carbon, there's zero cost.
So, yeah, if you want an agronomist to come out and give you recommendations, then you could enroll through our Indigo Acres program, and there are costs associated with that.
But not for just for carbon.
Okay.
So there's a bunch of Indigo people back over here, and Sarah and I will be around today to try to answer any questions that you guys have. Because I know that there's so many more questions to come, but thank you guys very much.
Thank you for this. I think this is